Let us enjoy some sounds of the bell together. This is we can give rise to the feeling of gratitude to be able to be here together as a community, as a fellowship, supporting each other. Maybe we may know everyone in this hall, maybe we may not, but we're here breathing together, being together, being fully present. We can invite a smile. You don't have to force it. Just allow a smile to be born. Offering gratitude to yourself, your body. You may like to close your eyes to just center yourself. You're safe. You're free. Allow yourself to be yourself. Breathing in, I feel my in-breath nourishing each and every cell of my body. Breathing out, I feel my body relax, nourishing every cell, relaxing every cell in my body. So good morning, dear respected teacher, dear noble community. Today is Thursday, August the 28th in the year 2025. We are sitting in the Rising Tide Meditation Hall at Magnolia Grove Monastery in Batesville, Mississippi, in our retreat for our friends in the 12-step program with the theme, Healing is Every Breath. I feel very fortunate to be sitting here today. This is I always really enjoy our 12-step retreats. I don't know the number, but I know we're plus 10 in terms of 12-step retreats. I don't know how many of us were here for the first 12-step retreat. I think we have Libby, yeah, a couple, right? So thank you for continuing to being here. This means a lot to us. And, when I think about one of the things that I love about the 12-step retreat is that we get straight into the suffering. Like there's no barrier. Like there's no like kind of oh hello flowers and blah. This is like goes straight into it, and I love that because suffering is such. As you may all know, we've all in this room probably experienced some kind of suffering here or there, including the monastics. I think the monastics were not free from this as well. I myself have experienced some suffering. But today, I guess, since we're straight into the suffering, let's be in the suffering. Many of us, we've kind of just, the human nature thing is to want to be distant as much as we can from suffering. And so today, I think just want to just share from my experience and just also just, you know, my relationship with suffering. And because I think it's something that is such an integral part of life. As I'm sitting here, I have a lot of, I'm inviting our teacher to sit here for me. Because when I think about my teacher, I get a lot of just, and honestly, no words because of the path that he had went through and the things that he had to overcome. And I'm sitting here, and as I was pouring my tea, I just, inviting our teacher to enjoy tea because he'd also always enjoy tea while sitting up here. And it would be like a type of like a teaching within just pouring tea. And I just want to share a little story about my time attending our teacher. And it's just a very short one. It was related to pouring tea. And, as an attendant, we would always be focused on, making sure that everything is right, making sure everything is where it needs to be, and making sure that even tea is brewed properly. And I remember because when I became a monk, I was very young, and I started to become an assistant at a very young age. And so I didn't know how to brew tea. And I just thought you just pour hot water in the teapot, and then you just pour it out, right? It's kind of like that, right? But with Tay, he really likes to enjoy the flavor of tea. And so you need to have it brew for a little bit. But at that time, I was just a teenager, so all we drank was soda and occasional water here and there. But yeah, no tea. And so I remember like the first time I poured tea, I just pour water in and pour it out. And you see the tea now, it has some color to it, right? And so when I poured the tea, it was like pouring hot water, just, just immediately. And then Tay drank the first cup, and he enjoyed it. I think he understood what was going on, and he brought his cup again for a second cup, and I poured the tea, and then I poured the hot water in the teapot, and then I started to lift the teapot, and then he put his hand and put it down. He said, "Let the teapot do some sitting meditation." Because in that way you will really get the flavor and the true essence of the tea. You don't want to rush it in order to get its full potential, in order to get its full flavor and the color, and in order for the tea to be itself, you need to let it brew, let it have a little bit of sitting meditation here and there. And so there's a very deep teaching in there, very deep teaching in there somewhere. But at that time, I was like, okay, my teaching at that moment was not to rush. Not to rush. Let it brew so that we can have full potential. And as I grew older in the practice, I started to realize that, we are also this teapot, and we have these elements of tea within us. And so sometimes if we are rushing ourselves, what we give is a very bland, or maybe it's not even ourselves. But when we allow ourselves to brew, when we allow ourselves to sit calmly, sit with ourselves, we can allow ourselves to be truly in touch with ourselves and offer our true beauty, our true self. And so we can allow ourselves at the monastery or wherever we are to practice sitting meditation, to practice walking meditation, eating meditation, These are very basic practices, but these practices allow us to be deeply in touch with who we are. So in Buddhism, we have many different types of teachings that you may have heard of. And so today I'd like to talk about, as I mentioned before, suffering and what does suffering mean in our practice, in Buddhism or in Plum Village practice. And so you may hear what is called the Four Noble Truths. So for me personally, I think that the Buddha was a very misunderstood person. And his teachings have maybe very misunderstood. But not getting into all of that, I think the reason why he was understood is kind of what was the purpose of his teachings, or what was he trying to teach. And for me, it's all he was trying to teach was suffering and how to get out of suffering. And so this was one of his first teachings after he had received, or after he had attained enlightenment. And so the first noble truth is suffering. Suffering is a truth. And it's actually a noble truth. And so for us, what is our relationship with suffering? So usually we see suffering as something very negative, or something like I don't want to be related to. I don't want to have anything to do with suffering. And so our relationship with suffering turns out to be something very negative. When we think about it, it just triggers something in us. So we have to identify, what is our relationship with suffering? Can suffering be something as helpful? Can it be helpful to us? Can it be something not helpful? Is this suffering helpful or not helpful? The second noble truth is there's a path that leads to suffering. So there's a way that we get to that suffering. So there's something that is a path for us to go into the suffering. So for example, if I am suffering because I have a toothache, it's probably because, as we've learned as children, we're probably eating a lot of candy and we're having a lot of cavities, and so it's contributing to our toothache. So if I'm eating a lot of candy, it's going to lead to the suffering, which is called my toothache. And so there's ways for us to get to our suffering. And so for us, we have identified our suffering and maybe how we've gotten to our suffering. And so maybe for our friends who are in AA, it could be that, we may have inherited this gene of alcoholism, or we may have been a part of it some way, somehow, through our environment, or just however we've gotten into it. And sometimes for us, if we continue to go down that path, then we continue to see it as a source of our suffering. Third noble truth is that there is the end of suffering. for the cessation of suffering. I don't really want to use the word end here, but I'm just going to put it out there. Which also means happiness. So maybe we can agree that if when suffering is absent, happiness arises. Maybe. Yeah. So suffering and happiness, they can go hand in hand. So they're like, if like they're kind of like the left and the right, they kind of need to work together. And so with the end of suffering, there can be something called happiness. And then the fourth noble truth is the path leading to happiness. And this path is, in Buddhism, what we like to call the Noble Eightfold Path. Which is right view. Let's see. So here we have right view, which leads to right thinking. Which leads to right speech. Then right action. Then right livelihood. Then right diligence. Then right mindfulness. Then right concentration. So this path, we like to draw it in a circle rather than in a line because it's like a cycle. So we can see that when we have right view, it can lead to right thinking. Right thinking can lead to right speech. Right speech can lead to right action. Right action can lead to right livelihood, diligence, mindfulness, and concentration. But then the same thing can be said of the opposite of right, which is maybe the ignoble Eightfold Path. So maybe the wrong view, wrong thinking, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood. So it starts with the way we view things. So how we view things is very important. So in Buddhism, we actually say having right view is actually having no view at all. So there's an example of right view that the Buddha had used, and it relates to our perception. And there's a view of if I was to put an elephant in the room, and there were maybe 3 blind people, and we asked them to touch the elephant and describe the elephant. Okay, so the one blind person goes to the ears and touches the ears, like, oh, an elephant is very flat, very wavy, very however you would describe the elephant's ear. Then there's one that goes to the trunk and says, oh, the elephant is very skinny, very flexible, very, very strong. Then one goes to the foot of the elephant. It's like, oh wow, elephant's very thick, very very thick, very thick. So this is the way that they would describe an elephant, and this is their idea of the elephant. That is my idea of the elephant, and so that is from their view of the elephant. But if we ask them to now rotate, go to the next part, so the person who's at the trunk, or goes to the feet, and the person at the feet goes to the ear to the trunk. All of a sudden, the person who sees that the elephant is thick goes to the ear and sees like, oh my goodness, so thin, right? So flappy, so interesting. And so how we view things, we may view things from our side of, I mean, like we hear a lot of the cliches, like, you never know how someone lives their life until you walk a mile in their shoes. And so don't be too quick to have this view of them, or to consider that that is absolute, or that is who they are. And so for us to, in order to be in touch with these Four Noble Truths, we need to be in touch with this first one, suffering. What is our relationship with suffering? What is suffering? In our practice, and what our teacher teaches us, he says that when you know how to suffer, you suffer much less. If you know how to suffer, you suffer much less. And so, because when we start to identify our suffering, we start to see, okay, this is what leads to my suffering. And then we start to see, actually, this is my suffering. Okay. Then we start to see, how do we get to that suffering? And when we start to see how we got to that suffering, we then start to see, okay, how can I suffer much less? And then when we start to suffer much less, we may experience more happiness, more joy, more understanding for ourselves in our daily life. And then we can continue to keep that happiness by practicing this Noble Eightfold Path. I will draw this out as an example so that it may be more clear. So in Buddhist psychology, we have many different types of consciousnesses. So this is like our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. Here will be our mind. And then this will be our store. In this store, we have what is called seeds. So these are seeds that can be seeds of anger. Let's call this one anger. And then let's call this one like joy. Let's do despair. So whatever we take in through our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our body, that's actually coming in and it's watering these seeds. So we have what is we take in through our senses. So we see something that makes us angry. If we see something that makes us angry, it's going to water this seed of anger here. If we smell something that makes us angry or makes us joyful, right? We smell something that makes us joyful. I don't know what smells good these days, So it's gonna water that seed of joy. And then the same thing can be said for anything. So we have about 50 seeds or 51 types of seeds in our consciousness. And so some are active and some are dormant. It depends on what is watering them. And so if we see ourselves becoming angry, we can start to recognize what is making me angry. So it's important for us to, when we're angry, first thing to do is to calm ourselves down. So there's the image of having like orange juice. And if you have orange juice and you stir it all up, you'll see it's orange juice. But if you let the orange juice sit for a while, you'll start to see that the pulp of the orange juice will settle down, and then the liquid will be separated. And so we can start to see clearly, okay, the orange juice has parts in it. So we have the pulp, and then we have the juice. And so it's kind of like our mind. If our mind is stirred up a lot, we don't really know what's going on. But if we allow our mind to calm down, we can start to see, okay, this is what that is what that is. And so it's important for us to allow ourselves to calm our mind down if we're angry. And then we start to recognize what is watering the seeds of anger. And so if the seed of anger is watered enough, we hear something that makes us angry, it is going to blossom within our mind. So it's going to be like a flower in our mind. And that is what we're focused on. Because of something that has been watering the seeds of anger, and the seed has started to take root in our store, if we're not quick to cut off this nurturement of the anger, this anger will still continue to arise and actually root itself much stronger within our consciousness without us even knowing. So we have to be very careful in identifying what is watering these seeds. But the same thing can be said with joy. So if we're watering the seeds of joy, and this is coming up into our mind, we can continue to water the seeds of joy and allow it to stay in our mind. So it's important for us to also understand that maybe this last seed that we didn't identify yet, this can be called the seed of mindfulness. We can water this seed of mindfulness to grow and to embrace this seed of anger here, so that this anger can go back down into the store. So the anger, it won't go away. It will still be in there. It just needs the right conditions for it to grow. So we can recognize and see what kind of environment are we in? What are we nurturing within ourselves in order to allow the seed of anger to grow? In order to allow these seeds of joy to grow. So it's like in layers. And we can see that, we can recognize that, and we can see that, okay, it's very much like suffering. If we can recognize the suffering, we can see what leads to the suffering. And then from there, we can cut off what is leading to that suffering and nurture happiness and keep happiness within our mind and our body. Let us enjoy the sound of the bell. when I was preparing for this talk, I was doing my research and studying more about the 12-step program, and there was always, I don't know if you've ever like read something, or maybe like you're kind of doing shopping, and then like you see an item, and you really like it, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna leave you there. I want you, but I don't need you. I'm gonna leave you there, and I will go shop some more. But while you're shopping, you're just constantly thinking about that item. Does that happen? Yeah. And so when I was reading about the 12-step program and just the different types of steps, um, I was just the word power greater was it just kept on being stuck in my mind. I kept on thinking about it. A power greater than ourselves. And I thought it was very fascinating, and I thought it was something just, it's very relatable to our practice. And when we think about a power greater than ourselves, because at times when we're experiencing, challenges and difficulties, we do need to have some kind of thing that may be outside of us in order to support us spiritually. And as I was reading, and just, it's like that item that, okay, then you eventually go back around and you buy the item, and then then you have it. And so, I was just really, and just in terms of my spiritual practice, and see how that resonates with me, and a power greater than ourselves. And I think a lot about the three refuges in Buddhism. And so in Buddhism, we have what's called the three refuges, or the three jewels, as we call them. And the first is being the Buddha, the second is the Dharma, and the third is the Sangha. And so the Buddha is the teacher, the second is the Dharma, which is the teachings, and then the third is the Sangha, which is the community or the fellowship. And, as a Buddhist monk, and having Buddhist faith, like a lot of who is the Buddha, or what is the Buddha? And when I grew up as a young person, and not understanding much about Buddhism, I thought that Buddhism was like, the Buddha was a deity, and we would bow and pray to him and things like that. But as I became a monk, and that was something I became very allergic to. But as I became a monk and slowly started to understand what the Buddha was, and actually what the Buddha means, I started to feel much more closer, much more connected. And something that I thought was greater than me was actually deep inside of me. And so the first jewel being the Buddha. And so the first part of Buddha, so B-U-D, in Sanskrit, it means just awakening. And so the word Buddha just means an awakened person. And so at that time, the Buddha, or Siddhartha was his name, the young prince. He was the awakened person at the time. And the funny thing is that we all have this awakened nature within inside of us. We all have this capacity to be a living Buddha. Because the Buddha was a human being just like all of us. And we all have that nature. Not only do we have that nature, or as humans we have Buddha nature, we call it Buddha nature, or the awakened nature, but also kind of all beings have an awakened nature. And so there was back in the day, there's like a story of a Zen master. And I don't know the details, I just hear about the story, and it says there was somebody who asked this Zen master, does a dog have Buddha nature? Does a tree have Buddha nature? Does a squirrel have Buddha nature? Does a rock have Buddha nature? When you look deeply and when you contemplate more, you start to see that you're no different from the tree that is in the forest. You're no different than the rocks, the mountains, the rivers. You start to see these things. You're living together with these things. We're sharing the earth together. We're all children of the earth. And we see that, like for a tree has its way of living in order for it to survive. A tree has its ecosystem. A tree has what it needs to in order for it to survive. So it needs the sun. It needs the rain. It needs the nutrients in the earth. It needs the raccoons living inside. It needs the squirrels. And it has its way of living in order to survive. And so, like, if you look into a forest, you see maybe there's a very healthy forest, and then there may be some trees in there that are wild to the forest or not supposed to be a part of the forest. And so they make damage to the ecosystem. And so the trees will find a way with the mycelium in order to communicate with each other, in order to protect itself. And so that is an awakened nature. The tree will find a way for it to protect itself and have its living and have its life. So not only do humans have human nature, do have Buddha nature or an awakened nature, but also do trees, do birds, do animals. And so thinking about that, we can start to see that we can start to find ways to nurture that awakening within inside of us. And so enlightenment is not something that we reach and then we have it. We're there forever, right? Enlightenment, we can actually reach it in this moment. It's like an insight or an aha moment. It's not something that we strive to get to and then we get there and then we stay there. Because we can be, like, I've had many moments of insight and then the next day I've suffered very deeply. And so it's not like we're reaching heaven and then we get to heaven and then we stay there. Heaven can be right now, right here in this moment. So when we come to the practice center or when we're practicing at home, we should manage a way how to master the practice of taking refuge in the three jewels. And so not necessarily taking refuge in like the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as other jewels, but like taking refuge in the awakened nature within us, taking refuge in the teachings that help guide us, and taking refuge in the community or our friends that support us. So yes, when you come to a Buddhist monastery or a temple or whatever, they're going to say Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. But when we look deeply, we can say that no, it's actually we're taking refuge in our awakened nature, the capacity to be awakened, to have insight. We're taking refuge in the teachings that help guide us. And then we're taking refuge in the community that supports us. These are not abstract ideas like the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. It's something very concrete. And they're actually energies that can be in the store that we can nurture. They're also, like, our awakened nature can be in the form of a seed. And so we can nurture that seed of awakening inside of us. The community can be a seed. We can nurture the community to grow. So we can make that commitment that we're a practitioner and not just a follower. We're practicing, we're not following. You're a practitioner. You're not just a believer. I can believe in this, but am I practicing it? The Buddha was a teacher. Jesus Christ was a teacher. And they're a true teacher because they really practice what they're teaching. And they offer the ways for us to take on that and practice together and to learn from it. Because I think the Buddha or Jesus or even Pei, they give the teachings because they want us to benefit from what they have learned and want us to maybe be like them or maybe even more than them. So they offer these teachings, and as a good teacher, they teach with the heart of helping us to also be like them. If they were selfish, then we would not be able to enjoy the benefits of this practice. So we have that capacity to grow our harmony, our solidity, our freedom, and the compassion that not only Jesus Christ has, or Buddha has, or whoever. We have that capacity, and they've given us that path to practice. So we can be a continuation of their love, of their compassion, of their understanding. They're spiritual giants, but they live deep down inside of us. And we can continue them with just through our practices of breathing, sitting, walking, smiling. We don't need to look for them as people outside of us. We don't need to look for the Buddha outside of us. We don't need to look for Jesus Christ outside of us. They're deep down inside of us because they've given us the way to love, the way to understand. They've also taught us the way to suffer. So you're not just a believer, you're also a practitioner. And we can nurture that in our daily life. If we were just a believer, we may tend to have maybe like a lot of fear inside of us. Maybe the fear of being lonely, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of suffering. And so the first place we would go to is just try to find a place where there is no suffering. But actually, if a place where there is no suffering, but where there is just well-being and happiness, I'm sorry to tell you, but such a place doesn't exist. And so we tend to believe like maybe like the kingdom of God or, is a place of no suffering. Or, that's the place where, these spiritual, beings, live and they live happily and they, all life is good and everything like that. And so that's what we believe. And that, like when we're there, that our love and understanding is provided by God, provided by the Buddha, provided by all the bodhisattvas and things like that. But so we may have this notion when we're really suffering. But we should learn that, where there is no suffering, there is no understanding and compassion. So where there's no suffering, there's no understanding and compassion. If suffering is not around, how can we learn to understand the suffering? So maybe for us, we've experienced the suffering in our daily life or in our past life or just now, right now. But if it wasn't there, how would we get the opportunity to understand what it is? How do we get the opportunity to help those who are going through the same suffering get out of their suffering if we did not experience that suffering? So us, we have the strength to overcome the suffering, to be a helping hand to others that experience the suffering. But if the suffering was not there, how can we understand it? It's kind of like going back to, I was talking about having a toothache and eating candy. If my toothache, right now I don't have a toothache, so I'm not suffering because I have a toothache. But when I do have a toothache, it hurts very bad. And so now I don't know what to do. Like now, okay, it's like I don't have a toothache, so I don't know. I'll just eat candy, right? Just eat candy, and then until I do get a toothache, then all of a sudden, then I have a toothache, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm suffering quite a lot. But when I'm recognizing that suffering, I'm starting to see, okay, I understand why I have this suffering now. So let me just take care of my teeth. Let me take care of my body. Let me take care of my diet, and my toothache goes away. And so if it's not there, how can we understand it? How do we know what to suffer? Or how do we know how to love? How do we know to be happy if we haven't experienced the suffering? So we should know that if we do have understanding and compassion inside of us, that is because we've suffered and we've took the time to understand the suffering. So wherever there's understanding and compassion, there's also suffering in the background. It may not be present fully because the understanding and compassion is currently present, but thanks to that suffering, we're able to be a more compassionate and understanding person in our daily life. So we can start to have a better relationship with suffering. We can start to see the suffering as something that's very helpful. Start to see it as something that can help us to love, help us to understand more. Because I feel very confident that everyone here just wants to be happy, just wants to be at peace, but also wants to help others to be happy, to help others find their peace. And so here, sitting here, I see that we're all trailblazers and we're all lived and overcome a lot of challenges. And it's such a guiding light for so many people that need it, who we know now or who we may not know in the future. So understanding and compassion is the energy of our spiritual teachers. So understanding and compassion is the energy of the Buddha, is the energy of God, of Jesus Christ, of Muhammad. And these spiritual teachers, they experience the suffering for us so that they can generate understanding and compassion. So we can do the same. So our spiritual teachers, they've overcome the suffering so that they can generate compassion and love for all beings. So if you have in mind that you don't want to run away from suffering anymore, then suddenly the kingdom of God, the Pure Land, is right here, right now, in this moment. So when we start to see, okay, I no longer need to run away from my suffering, I can confront my suffering, the kingdom of God is present. The Pure Land is present within this moment. There's a phrase in our practice, is called no mud, no lotus. So it's a very popular phrase. So we can imagine, I don't know if you've seen our lotus pond. It has some lotus flowers. And so this lotus pond has a story of its own. So maybe about, I would say, 7 or 8 years ago, it would be flourishing with a lot of lotuses. And so we would always say, oh, it's because we had very good mud, maybe good suffering or so forth, so that the lotus flowers grew. And then after that, for many years, 5+ years, we didn't have any lotus flowers anymore. The lotus pond dried up, or we've had just kind of, we had snapping turtles that like to eat the roots, and then we had these different types of fishes and things like that, and so many different reasons. And so we didn't have we didn't have the lotus flowers. Um, and so some people would tease, we don't have any more suffering. But then it's like, but we don't have any more beautiful lotus flowers anymore, because lotus flowers, they need the mud in order to grow. They don't grow on like beautiful hardwood, or on our teacher like said, they don't grow on marble, right? They need mud in order to grow. And so we're like, oh yeah, it's good not to have suffering, but then we love our lotus flowers, and so we want it to grow. And so now you can see it, but they've all kind of just grown on the edge. So there's really nothing in the middle. So that's like a koan for the monastery, or that's just like a question, like, why is that? Why is it just growing on the side? But a friend came to me and said, actually, it's so lovely on the side because we can really get close to it and see how the lotus flower grows, and so forth. And so, no mud, no lotus. So understand that, without the suffering inside of us, without the mud, we can't have that lotus flower grow. So when we see this beautiful lotus flower blossom within inside of our hearts, it's thanks to the mud. And sometimes they say, the more muddier, the better. But be careful with that when it comes to your suffering. Don't dwell too much. Don't swim too much in that mud, but understand the mud. Take care of the mud. And take care of yourself as well. What we tend to do, and it's a very natural thing, is we like to put all of our suffering in a basket and take care of it before we allow ourselves to be happy again. So we like to put everything here and okay, I need to deal with all of this suffering before I can be happy. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Take it easy. Don't rush yourself. See the suffering. See what you have the capacity to take care of. Take care of it and enjoy the little win. Enjoy it. Be happy. Understand that, this little suffering can help me to be happy. There's going to be suffering that we may not have capacity for, and that's okay. We understand that. Don't suppress it. Don't throw it away. Say, hey, I will be right back when I'm ready. So don't be too hard on yourself when it comes to the suffering. Say that, I need to be perfect. No, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be yourself. And make sure you have the capacity to take it on. And so sometimes there's some suffering that may not be taken care of in this lifetime. But we do the best that we can so that it doesn't get transmitted into our children, into the future generations. We do the best that we can, because we may have inherited that suffering from our parents that they weren't able to transform yet, or from their parents that they weren't able to transform yet. And so we've inherited that. So we do the best that we can to understand, and understand that we may not be able to transform all of it. Some things need more times than others. And that's okay, but we do the best that we can, while also not only taking care of our suffering, but also taking care of our happiness at the same time. So we can see that taking care of our suffering is taking care of our happiness. Taking care of our happiness is taking care of our suffering. And so recognize your suffering, take care of what you can, enjoy the happiness when you have it. Don't let that moment go by without enjoying it. Because life is very impermanent, and you just never know what will happen. And let us recognize that, and let us take care of that. And I'll just end by this morning. We read the discourse on happiness, and there was just a small verse in there that I just like to share, and it just really, it just stood out this morning to me. It says, to live in a good environment, to have planted good seeds, and to realize that you are on the right path. This is the greatest happiness. So I'll repeat it one more time. To live in a good environment, to have planted good seeds, like those seeds there, and to realize that you are on the right path. This is the greatest happiness. And so I think for us to be here, and the fact that you've chosen to come here for however many days and to be practicing to us with us as a monastic community, but also just as a community, the 12-step community, it's a beautiful thing. And so I am very grateful to be here, to be with you guys during this retreat, and to be practicing alongside of you. And I appreciate you and having me sit up here this morning. And I wish you all a wonderful retreat. And thank you so much for listening. Let us end with 3 sounds of the bell, and to enjoy this moment together, breathing together, and being alive, being ourselves.